Hey guys, Damien here. So it's been a while since I've done a video. I was checking out the videos over at Sous Vide Everything. If any of you haven't seen their channel on YouTube, go check it out. It's called Sous Vide Everything. Those guys are great. They seem to always be coming up with new ideas, new things to try, and their videos are a lot of fun to watch. I wish I had the time to do all the cool stuff that they do, but I just don't. I was watching one of their videos here lately that is Sous Vide Prime Rib, and it was a great video. I've been sous vide prime rib for several years now, so I thought, well, I'll make a quick video of how I do it. It's very similar, but there are a few differences. I'll try to keep it short. I know people keep giving me crap about my videos going long, but at some point I'm just long-winded, and that's just how it goes. So I'll try to cut it down. So let's get started. Okay, so first of all, I've got a prime rib here, and it's personal preference for me, but I prefer boneless. If you like bone in, that's great. I just like the boneless, and I also tend to not. I don't trim the fat off of my prime rib. A lot of people do. I like the flavor that extra fat adds when it's sous vide for 2-3 hours at a time, or longer depending on how big it is, obviously. But I leave the fat on, and that's just personal preference. So one of the first things I want to do is just figure out how long to cook this, and the general rule of thumb is about an hour per inch. So wash your hands off a little bit there. So what I'm going to do is just take a ruler. Anything you got laying around will do. Of course, clean is always good, but so we'll just take it and measure it and see what do we got here. A little over 2.5 inches. If you factor in the measurement doesn't start right at the end of the ruler, so a little over 2.5 inches. So just to be safe, I'll probably cook this prime rib here for 3 hours, just to be safe. So with this ribeye, we've got about a little more than 2.5 inches thick. So what I'm going to do is, just to be safe, I'm going to cook it for 3 hours. And for me personally, I like 129 degrees is typical for medium rare, and that's where I cook all my steaks. But I've noticed with prime rib, 129 is a little too rare, especially for my wife. So what I do, we compromise, and I cook it at 131. And at 131 degrees Fahrenheit, it comes out perfectly every time. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to post-sear the meat. I'm not going to sous vide it and then sear it with like a Searzall or a torch or something like that, or even in a pan. I think the pan's best personally. But I'm going to pre-sear it. So let's do that next. Okay, so I've got my pan here, and I'm using a deeper pan. A lot of people use just a skillet, but this tends to make a big mess. And I normally wouldn't use a pan like this, I should say. I prefer cast iron, but all of my cast iron pans are at our kitchen, so I just don't have access to them at this point. So I am going to use this. One thing I do like about this pan is the taller sides, and with the taller sides, like I said, it's going to make a mess, but maybe that'll help just a little bit with the grease. I should say with the oil, because as we sear this baby, it's going to get real hot and it tends to splatter everywhere. Now I finally have a real hood above me here, so you can get a shot of that. A real hood that actually works. So with that hood, I'm going to crank that up to try to vent as much of this as possible. So let's go ahead and get this going. I do have a lid here that I'm going to use when I can. Again, just trying to trap some of the grease because it makes a hell of a mess. Again, if you can do this outside, I definitely recommend doing this outside. If you hear any weird noises in the background, that's my African gray. She likes to talk up a storm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this heat up. Probably have too much oil, but I'd rather have a little too much than not enough. So I'm going to heat this oil. I'm using grapeseed oil. Grapeseed oil has a very high temperature tolerance so that it doesn't burn. So it's really good for searing meat, which is exactly what we're going to do here. And I'm probably going to sear it for maybe we'll see how it goes, maybe a minute minute 15 or so on each side, and until it's got a nice crust on it. And then we're going to pull it out, and what we're going to do next is then crust it. So this is going to be a fresh herb and peppercorn crusted prime rib, and it's going to turn out amazing. Or at least I hope it does, because it normally always does when I'm not recording it, so we'll see. Okay, and what I'm doing here is I'm just waiting for the oil to heat up to the point that it's hot enough, and you'll know it's hot enough when it starts to smoke a little bit. You want a little smoke. Too much smoke and it's starting to burn, and you've gone too far. I'm going to go ahead and turn the fan on now, so I'll try to speak up, but it does get quite loud when it's on its highest setting. There we go. Hopefully you can kind of still hear me. I don't know if you can see it or not, we're starting to get a little smoke. So I'm going to go ahead and put this baby in. And I'm going to try to sear every side. Try to cover it a little bit. Oh hell, it's for a video. I'll make a mess. Take another look here. Almost what I'm looking for. Don't fail me now. That's looking pretty good. That's kind of what I like to see right there. I'm going to move it onto its side. And I'm just going to keep rotating it around until I've got all the sides. Let's see what this looks like. Try not to drop it. A few more seconds, I think we're good. Okay, go ahead and turn the burner off. I think we are good. Oh yeah, that was great. We'll put this back on the cutting board. We'll keep that fan going for a little while because that baby's still smoking. Okay, so now what we have is this beautiful looking pre-seared prime rib. Look at all the sides here. Let's flip her over. That's nice. That looks great to me. So now that it's pre-seared, what I'm going to do is, I mentioned earlier, or hopefully I mentioned earlier, this is actually going to be a fresh herb and peppercorn encrusted prime rib. So now that it's pre-seared, now the pre-searing does make this a little more difficult, but it still works fairly well. What I've done in this bowl here, I've got, I can't tell you the exact amounts because I kind of just eyeballed it, but I took a whole bunch of peppercorns, ground them up in a food processor, and then finely chopped a whole bunch of fresh thyme and rosemary. And so what I'm going to do is take this mixture. I've mixed it all in a bowl. I'm going to take that mixture and just kind of try to get it to stick to the outside before we put it into the sous vide sealed bag to cook. So let's do that. That looks good. Now I just get my bird to shut up. Okay, so I've got my bag here. This is not an exact science. Let's see if this fits. And again, this is fresh rosemary and thyme, finely chopped, as well as just black peppercorns, run through a food processor. Get that baby in there, if you can see that. And what I was going to do is I'm going to take a lot of this extra and I'm going to throw it in there with it. Oh, that was good. That is going to be phenomenal. Okay, let's seal this baby up. Okay, so we're using a basic food saver machine here, nothing super fancy or commercial. Let's get this sealed up. There we go. Only took, I believe, 4 tries. Yeah, this machine, not too expensive, but it can be, definitely can be finicky. So we've got our prime rib here. Look at that. That looks yummy to me. One of my 4 jewels. That's how much I like them. And in she goes. All right, 3 hours to food. We'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and the prime rib is done. It has been just over 3 hours. What we're going to do next is we're actually going to make Lawry's whipped cream horseradish sauce. This is definitely nothing I created. It's something you can find on the internet. I will include the directions in the description as well as a link, and it is by Lawry's. And for years and years and years, I'd used Lawry's seasoning salt, and I had no clue that Lawry's actually it's a chain. I can't really say chain, but they have multiple restaurants. I know there's one in Vegas, I believe Chicago, probably LA. There's a couple of them. They're prime rib houses, and so they make this really great Lawry's whipped cream horseradish. So I pulled the directions to this just right off their website, and I'll include that, and let's get started. Okay, so we've got our basic ingredients, which include a cup of whipping cream, a 1/4 teaspoon of Lawry's seasoned salt. I'm using probably half a teaspoon, like a little stronger, and then also 2 tablespoons of prepared horseradish or fresh grated horseradish, one or the other, but not both. And a dash of Tabasco. We'll probably do more than a few dashes. Like it a little strong. So first thing you want to do is just dump in the old cream here. And the directions say to whip it till you get stiff peaks. You can do this by hand. I'm too lazy, so we're going to use a hand mixer here. Fold in salt, horseradish, Tabasco until well mixed. Take our spatula for that. Go ahead and put in our salt, horseradish, and a couple of dashes of Tabasco. A couple of extra dashes of Tabasco. I'll just put it in this bowl. You see, just 1 cup of cream creates quite a lot. So that's really all you need. And it's really quick. Let's cut this baby open. Now remember, we've got all those extra peppercorns and all that extra stuff. Let's see how well it held. Wow. See, got some coming off there. Okay, we're back, and it's time to carve up the prime rib after 3 hours at 131 degrees. And we've got fresh herb and peppercorn crusted, and I have let it rest for about 5 minutes. Now, I'm not entirely convinced that when you cook with sous vide with meat that you need to let it rest like you do conventional cooking methods like a grill or in the oven or a skillet or something, but I do it anyway. Let's take a look. Ooh, that looks yummy. Ooh, perfect. Ooh. Now you do get that extra fat. Like I said earlier, I don't trim the fat. I like the extra flavor the fat gives. So you do get the extra fat, so you're going to have to trim that while you eat. But man, look at that. Cooked perfectly. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming by and checking out the prime rib, sous vide prime rib video with pre-searing instead of post-searing. And I tried to make it a little bit quicker so people can stop bitching that the videos are too long. If you still don't like it, whatever, I don't care. Either way, thanks for coming by and have a great day.